A judge will meet tomorrow with prosecutors and defense attorneys to talk about dates for a possible retrial. Porter remains suspended from the police department without pay. No word yet on how the mistrial will affect the state's cases against the 5 other officers charged in Gray's death.
Criminal District Court Judge and former Dallas County Prosecutor Brandon Birmingham is in to talk about this mistrial today. All right. Officer William Porter, I'm going to read him, faced 4 different charges: manslaughter, second-degree assault, reckless endangerment, and misconduct. Does it tell you something about the nature of this impasse? They didn't agree on any of these charges. Some are more serious than others. What does that tell you about the impasse, if anything?
Well, I think if you're a lawyer and you're prosecuting the case, or you're a lawyer and you're defending the case, obviously the split means that the jurors were unable to agree on beyond a reasonable doubt that the evidence convinced them beyond a reasonable doubt of the case. You know, there was the issue of the seatbelt. Should it have been on? Should it have not been on? The defense attorneys also called an expert witness challenging the timing of the death, which was key. And obviously some jurors were convinced and some jurors were not.
But the nature of the charge, manslaughter, is more serious than endangerment or misconduct.
Right.
Does that mean there was a holdout? I don't care what the charge is, I'm not convicting him, or I'm not letting him walk. I mean, does that? Do you think there was some of that going on?
I think there probably could have been. I mean, certainly the lawyers now are going to go. They're going to try to figure out. They're going to try to talk to the jurors. They want to know what helped the jurors along, what hurt the jurors. They want to find out everything they can, because by all implications and by all indications, they're going to try the case again. Okay,
let me ask you something. As a prosecutor, you've got 5 other guys scheduled for trials, waiting to be queued up. Do you want to go with the easiest case first? In theory, should this have been the one they thought was a slam dunk?
Yeah, I think there's a train of thought that would tell you, if you're the prosecutor and you have multiple co-defendants like this, you want to get the most culpable first, the one that's easiest to prove, the one that was most active first, and then you take them each in line after that. And so maybe that was the thinking to try Mr. Porter's case first.
Okay, so the slam dunk doesn't go your way. Does that make you reconsider all the trials? Do you drop some charges? Do you retry this guy? I'm sure prosecutors are not sure what to do right now, or maybe public pressure makes them do something.
Well, maybe, but I can tell you what they're going to do. They're going to look at the evidence that was presented, they're going to talk to the jurors, and they're going to try to come up with a game plan. They could try this case again the exact same way. You got to remember too, the witnesses are now locked down in their testimony. They know what the defense is going to say. They can try to rebut that, and let's not forget that the defendant testified now. So now they have another set of another story from the defendant that he gave, and that was ripe fodder for cross-examination during the trial.
Do you think the verdict will affect the other cases?
Maybe. The jurors in that case are going to be instructed they're not to consider anything. They're not going to be told about it. I'm sure, you know, probably everybody knows about it already. But they're going to be instructed that they're, in all 5 of the additional cases and in the retrial of this case, not to consider anything but what was presented in court.
But they're trying them. You think they're trying them all?
I think I've heard that and I've read that. Yeah, I would say so.
All right. When you're a judge and a jury is deadlocked, how much do you cajole? How do you know when to push them, and how do you know when to say this thing's not going to happen?
The jurors are your best guide. I mean, if they're telling you once, you know, hey, we're deadlocked, you tell them to keep deliberating. If they tell you again, well, then you have to try to figure out how strongly are they deadlocked. Are the numbers moving? You can talk to the jurors every now and then and ask them, are you moving one way or another? Don't tell me how, but are you moving in one direction or another? Is there any movement? Or you just ask them, hey, do you think there's going to be a verdict?
Do you feel the public pressure? The world's watching this. Do you know that as the judge and really try to get a verdict
of course.
in?
I can promise you, my experience with jurors is they understand gravity. I've presided over some cases that had some media attention. I've tried some. The jurors really appreciate the weight of and the gravity of that situation, that trial.
Race was a key element in all of the circumstances outside the courtroom. Don't know how it played exactly inside the courtroom, but I can tell Officer Porter's black, African-American. So were 4 women and 4 men on the jury. The others were 3 white women and 2 white men. We don't know how that breakdown played out. We don't know if it was racial divide or gender divide or anything else. Will we know that? I guess the jurors know how that played out.
The jurors know that. They'll be given an opportunity to talk about that or not. Certainly the lawyers are going to want to go back and talk to them and figure out, you know, what was the mindset of the jurors. You know, it's not very often in cases that I've either presided over or handled where it was a clean break along racial lines or a clean break along gender lines. It is usually the evidence that drives jurors' decisions and how they perceive it. And so that's what these lawyers are going to be doing over the next couple weeks.
And it could be won. right?
It could be one.
One holdout juror.
It could have been 11-1 for guilty, 11-1 for not guilty. It could have been any combination thereof.
And we might not find it out. If the jurors talk, we will. They're allowed to talk. You dismiss them. But there's a gag order on this case.
Right.
Attorneys won't be talking.
Attorneys won't be talking.
Judge Brandon Birmingham, thanks for coming down. Appreciate your insight.
Yes, sir.